Ask you, Democrats lost every statewide race here in the state of Ohio on election night. You hear the infighting going on between progressives who say the president is caving in too much and the moderates who believe he'll have to be more like Bill Clinton back in 1993 and move to the center and begin to compromise with the Republicans on some things. Are you concerned that this disarray will prevent a Democratic comeback of any kind in 2012?
Well, first of all, it was a tough election night. No bones about it. A month ago, I was disappointed not to be reelected as Attorney General. But it was an election in which there were broader forces at work. I think we understand that. We've seen that before in Ohio numerous times over the years, including 1994, 1962, 1946. And there is always healthy debate, sometimes acrimonious debate going on in both parties. And so I think that that's a natural part of the process. It doesn't bother me. It is important to come together and be ready for elections because elections matter. The choices we make about our leadership will dictate a lot of decisions that are made over the next coming years, both in Ohio and in the country. But no, there's always going to be real spirited discussion within party structures in this country.
Democratic operative told me privately after the election that Rich Cordray should be leading state Democrats for the next 2 years. He has the right blend of temperament plus respect from various factions within the state Democratic Party. Is a visible party role something that may appeal to you and something that may be helpful to you as you look ahead to your political future?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, whether you mean something like state party chair, which is not something I'm interested in, or if you simply mean leadership within this state on public policy issues, which is something that I've been devoted to for a long time and expect to continue to do that and expect to want to remain in the political arena with opportunities in the future. There will be better years than this year. We know that, and I'll be prepared for them.
Almost immediately after the election, the speculation started about what your political future might look like. The governor has an appointment to the Ohio Supreme Court to make before he leaves office, Governor Strickland. There's been talk that you might be a candidate for governor in 4 years. I know we're just after the election, but what can you tell us about your plans for the future and what options you are seriously considering?
Well, it is early, Mark. I mean, we're just a month from the past election. It's almost 4 years until the next one. But for myself, I think I've made it clear that at my age and given my interest in mixing up on public policy issues, I don't think that's the right formula to be a judge in the Ohio Supreme Court. I think judges need to separate themselves from politics. They don't always, but they should. And that's not what I'm interested in doing at the moment. I do expect and want to be a candidate for office again in 4 years. And I think it's important for the people of the state to have alternatives. It's a very close-run state. Small swings in the pendulum can have exaggerated results. We've seen that from 2006 to 2008 to 2010 is maybe as good an example as we've ever seen. But there have to be alternative voices. There have to be alternative public policies being set out there. There have to be choices for people. And it's going to be a very unbalanced state government for the next several years. And so I think it's all the more important to have those voices.
So what are your plans then going forward, if nothing else, to keep yourself visible and viable as a statewide candidate down the road?
Well, that's something I've been working on. There are some irons in the fire. I think there'll probably be news on that soon. I don't have news on that today, but I do plan and expect to be remaining front and center on important public policy issues, the same kind that I worked on as Ohio Attorney General, trying to protect every household in Ohio from predators, fraudsters, scammers, and that's where my heart has been, and that's where it will remain.
Is there anything Democrats could have done differently in the election campaign or in their policy making that would have protected them from such a massive, broad defeat at the polls?
You know, it's natural after an election to go back and think, what could I have done? What should I have done? I haven't found anything in my own soul searching, and I think we all do it, that is something that I didn't, and my team and I didn't think about at the time. We made our best judgments about how to do the job of Attorney General based on the information available to us. I think that we had a strong record in the office. I think everybody recognized that who looked at the race closely and looked at our performance closely. It was difficult for me, of course, because I did come in and have only 2 years as Attorney General. Midway through the term, replacing Mark Dan, and it took some time to get the office back on the kind of footing that I think it needs to be, and that I will now pass it on to my successor. But having said that, I got a chance to be Attorney General for 2 years. People know what I did as Attorney General, standing up to Wall Street, standing up to the predators who take advantage of Ohio families. And I'm proud of that record, and I think it's a good record, and I will take that into future contests and stand by it.
We should point out that those numbers closed quite dramatically post-election as the absentee votes came in from the rest of the state. I mean, the margin of defeat here for you ended up being, what, 1%? Not enough to trigger an automatic recount, but it definitely closed.
Yeah, well, it was a very close race. It was a tough race against a tough opponent. Mike DeWine is well known in Ohio. He had the ability to self-fund his campaign to a considerable degree. That was all true. But, you know, when you lose an election, it's just a tough thing. If you've done it before, it doesn't shatter your world the way it may for some people the first time. You have to get your perspective back, put it in perspective, and look for lessons that you can take into the future if you're still willing to pick yourself up and go back at it, as I certainly am.
All right, we have to take our first break, but very quickly, do you envision yourself perhaps as the Democratic nominee for governor 4 years from now?
That certainly could be. I'd be interested in that.
Does a matchup with John Kasich concern you? I mean, what would you think of that?
I think if you're running for any of the important offices in Ohio, you always expect a tough matchup, and that doesn't discourage me in any way.
All right, very good. Keep it here. Attorney General of the state of Ohio, Richard Cordray, is our guest. And let's talk about health care. Mike DeWine said this week, General, that he will immediately join a lawsuit against the new health care law his first day in office on January 10th. You have not in the past thought that was a good idea. What do you think of the fact that he's going to make that his first action as Attorney General?
Well, that was a straight-up legitimate difference of opinion between Mike and myself during the campaign, so I fully understand that he is going to take his approach, which differs from my approach. I continue to think that the health care reform law is constitutional. There are 2 courts thus far who have actually joined that issue and have upheld the law as constitutional. There are many lawsuits grinding forward, as there are with any major legal reform, and ultimately I do believe that law will be upheld, but Mike has a different view. He's going to join that lawsuit. Once he joins it, I don't know that there will be any discernible difference at that point. The suit will continue to go forward just as it was before, but he will have fulfilled that promise.
There's been a talk, obviously, of the new Republican majority in the House to repeal and replace the health care reform law. Do you think we'll have an answer to this legal question about the constitutionality of the legislation before we see some kind of action in the legislature to change it?
It will take a couple of years for the lawsuits to wind their way through the courts, maybe 3 or 4 years, so that will be some time. I think you'll find that although the Republicans campaigned hard on this issue in the fall, and they did well on this issue and other issues, there will be no serious move to repeal the health care reform. And a lot of the people who supported their campaigns, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, like a lot of provisions in that bill. That's the sort of dirty secret in Washington. There may be some tweaks to it. Some tweaks I think are necessary, including the $600 filing provision for small businesses on their contracts, which is overdone in my view. But I do not think you'll see any repeal effort, and it couldn't go forward with this president there to block it. This is one of his signature reforms, and it is one of the major pieces of progressive legislation for the American people of the last 2 decades.
Tea Party activists and other opponents of the federal law keep asking, if the federal government can order everyone to buy health insurance, where does this end? And what's your answer?
Well, the answer is that everybody recognizes, and Attorney General-elect DeWine recognized, that the Congress has the authority to regulate health care. That's clearly within the Commerce Clause power. And then the subsidiary question is whether requiring people to purchase health insurance in a complicated scheme that includes subsidies and other things to make it affordable for people is part of solving the problem. Everybody recognizes that if you don't have that mandate, then everyone out there will be able to game the system. They won't buy health insurance when they're healthy, and then when they find themselves sick, since they will be required to have access to the system, they'll be able to buy it then. That will destroy any meaningful health care reform. We'll have the same free rider problems that we've been experiencing for the last 20 years, where there's millions of uninsured, some of them because of economic circumstances, others who simply choose not to buy health insurance when they think they're healthy, and then things happen to them, they go to the emergency rooms, and we all end up paying. That's the problem in the system now. It's a broken system, and this is designed to correct it. It's a complicated bill. I don't profess to know all the ins and outs of how well it will succeed, but I certainly think it's constitutional.
But you don't have any qualms about big brother government, as the Tea Party folks might call it, ordering people to buy something?
But I think we all have qualms about big brother government. But I don't think that the health care reform bill is an area where the Congress has overstepped the legal bounds that the Supreme Court has laid down. And I think if you don't require insurance, just same thing with car insurance at the state level. We require people to buy car insurance.
But
maybe that's
driving
big
is kind
brother
of a
government.
privilege, though.
Yeah,
And
it's a basic necessity of modern life for most people. And so, yeah, sure, they cannot buy insurance and just stay off the roads. But we all know the perils that we face now because you get in an accident, an uninsured driver, because many people do drive without the insurance, even though it's in violation of the law, and it's always going to be a problem for you. And that's the nature of this broken system, is that many people were uninsured, lots of costs being incurred. You had a system where the insurance companies could kick people out of the system when they became expensive. And you know, that's what the Congress has tried to address. It's certainly within Congress's authority, I think, to do that.
General, your office has really emphasized, I think we get numerous press releases from your office and have on a regular basis about consumer protection. Senator DeWine has emphasized business protection. Is that the type of thing where that's more political than reality? In other words, will he continue to advocate consumer protection while emphasizing the business interests that he stakes out, as maybe you did, but you emphasize consumer? Or should Ohioans be concerned that the emphasis here is going to go off consumer protection and straight to business?
I actually think the difference he tried to paint in the campaign was more rhetoric than reality. I think any attorney general, and you can look at them from both parties, is going to know that part of their role, heart and soul of their role, is to protect consumers in the state against unfairness, against predatory conduct.
So
you
you're
have
not
to
worried
be
about
standing
that?
up for Ohio families. Well, look, there's differences of how much initiative you take. I obviously was very aggressive on consumer protection, very aggressive on holding Wall Street accountable. It may be that Mike will differ in some respects with that, but it is part of the job to protect Ohioans, and it would be astonishing to me if he did not follow through on that. I feel certain that he will. When we had some more specific conversations during the campaign and discussions and debates, he never cited a single lawsuit that I brought that he would not have brought. And so I think it's really more rhetoric than it is substance in terms of those issues. You balance both. I was a pro-business attorney general, but I was also strong for consumers. And the law-abiding businesses know and respect that because that's protecting them. They have to compete against the cheaters, and they don't want those folks out there undercutting them. So they applaud strong law enforcement as long as it's even-handed, just as much as everybody else.
Mark, we're down to 30 seconds.
Are there any initiatives you're still trying to finish before you leave office, or actions that you definitely want to take before the end of the year?
There are. We had a victory on a big one just the other day, which was the human trafficking law, creating a new felony offense under Ohio law of human trafficking. It's really the only accomplishment of the lame duck General Assembly here. That's something I've been pushing for since I formed the Trafficking in Persons Commission last year. It's a major achievement, and we're celebrating that today.
All right, Capitol Square final answer. As Bushido was to 16th century samurai, this was to 12th century knights. What is the question?
What is chivalry?
That would be correct. 5-day, undefeated, 1987 Jeopardy champion, $40,000. That was a lot of money back then.
It was more than I made working for the Supreme Court the entire year.
Right. And we
That's
were all
the priorities of our society.
And we were so much younger then. General, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, some other